Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Carly from Beach Life Studio, and today I'm going to show you exactly how to get started with using Procreate on the iPad. So I'm going to go over all the basics of Procreate. So I hope that you find this tutorial helpful, and if there's anything you want me to go over in more depth, just let me know. So I'm just going to start by opening up Procreate here. And by the way, I'm using the iPad Pro 12.9 inch with the second generation Apple Pencil. So when you come into Procreate, it will come into this gallery section here. So I've got a whole ton of different drawings that I've done over time. So you've got single files, and then you can have stacks as well. So to make a stack, you just click and hold an image, drag over another image, and then you can drop, and now that's made a stack. And you can rename the stack by clicking it there and renaming it. At the top here, you've got select, where you can click and then select any drawings that you want. You can preview. So you can preview the image like that. You can share, duplicate it, or delete it. But to view it even faster, you can actually just pinch two fingers out, and now you can actually flip through all of your images. If you want to edit the image, you can just double tap it with your finger and it'll bring up into edit mode. And if you want to exit out of the image, you can just pinch two fingers in and that will bring you back to the gallery. And then also you've got up here import and photo, which is where you can import a photo or a file. And then in this top corner, you've got the little plus button, which will bring up all your canvases. So I've actually got quite a lot of canvases going on. Every time you make a new canvas, it adds it to the bottom of the list. So I've actually got quite a lot untitled, but I have tried to rename a lot of them to try and keep myself organized, but it is a bit of a mess right now. It also comes with a few of Procreate's default canvases as well. But if you want to rename anything, you can just swipe to the left and you can actually delete or edit. So if you click on edit, this is where you can actually rename it at the top. You can put in your width, your height, and you can change it to pixels, centimeters, and all that down here as well. You can also move around the canvases by just holding down and dragging, so you can put your most important ones at the top. And if you click this little button at the top here, this is where you can create a new canvas for yourself. You've also got DPI here, which stands for dots per inch, and then you can also see your maximum layers as well. And then you've got your color profile here, which gives you RGB or CYMK. So let's just make a new canvas. I'm just going to go for the default A4 size. So once we have our canvas open, down the side here we have a sidebar where you can select the size of the brushes that you use and also the opacity. And this is a little undo and redo button just here. And then up the top here you've got some tools. You have the gallery button, which brings you back to the gallery. A few tools here which I'll go through in a bit, but we'll start over this side. So this is going to bring up the color palette if you click this little button here, and basically you've got your classic grid, which is what I use the most, which you can just choose colors here and change it and move it around like this as well. And then you've got disc, where you can bring up the wheel and use colors like that. Also, by the way, you've got your history here, and this is just going to bring up one of your color palettes that basically you have selected. But if you want a different color palette here, so you can go to it straight away, you can actually just click a color palette and then put set as default, and now that will be ticked. And if you go back here, that will now be your main color palette. So anyway, if you go to harmony, you've also got this. If you struggle picking colors that work well together, you can just use this chart, move it around, and it automatically selects the color that's meant to go with it. And if you click on complementary, you can actually choose a few other different options, like split complementary gives you the 3 little blobs and you can move those around. And this one here, which gives you 4 blobs to choose from. So you can just click on a blob, and each one you click on basically just gives you that complementary color, which is literally so cool. And I'm going to be using this wheel a lot now. And then you've got value, so you can change the highlights, shadows, and all that. And you've got a hex code here, which is really handy. And then you've got palettes on the end here. So this brings up all the color palettes that you can make, and it's got a few default ones at the bottom. So to make a new palette, you can just click the little plus button here and you can create a new palette, and you can rename it here. If you click the 3 dots, you can share, duplicate, or delete it as well. And to put colors in there, you can actually color pick from the canvas here, and you can just tap the box to add it in. And to delete it, you can just hold it and it will come up with delete swatch. You can also insert a color palette from an image as well. So if you go to the plus button, you can actually take a picture from your camera, you can upload it from a file or from photos. So if I just pick this one, for example, but it is also handy to have as well. And here you've got cards, and this gives you like a bigger view of the color palettes, and it also gives you the names as well, which is really cool. So next to that, we have the layers panel. So you've got background color here. If you click that, it will bring up the colors. If you click this little plus button, you can make a new layer. You can untick the layer and hide it by unticking the box. And if you click on the little N, which stands for normal, it's already selected on normal, you can go through this list and change like the effects of the drawing on that layer. So it brings up all these different things, and then you can use the opacity bar to like adjust that as well if you want. You can also move the layer by clicking and holding the layer and dragging it around. And then if you click the layer again, it will bring up this list of things that you can do. So you can rename the layer, you can select it. As you can see, it's now selected it. You can copy, you can fill the layer, that will give you like a complete color fill. And you can clear the layer here, you can alpha lock it. This basically means that whatever you draw on top of it will not go outside of this purple color now. So for example, if I just choose a blue, the only thing is you can't change that blue part of the drawing now because it's like on top of the purple, so it's like together on one layer. So if you wanted to change it, you can make a new layer on top, and you can go to clipping mask, which is the next ones down. I'm not going to go over mask here though, because I don't really use that, but yeah, clipping mask is just here. So if you click on that, it'll bring up this little arrow, which now means this layer is now clipped onto the purple one below it. So whatever you draw on top of that, again, it won't go outside the layers, but the only thing is now it's on its own layer. You can change this pink color and it won't affect the rest of the drawing now because it's on its own layer. Then you've got drawing assist, invert, reference, merge down and combine down. I don't really use any of these ones, so at the moment I currently won't go through them. And lastly, if you swipe to the left here, you can lock the layer, duplicate or delete the layer. Next to layers is the eraser tool. So if you click on it again, it will actually bring up all the brushes, and this is the way you can choose a brush to erase with. So if I choose the soft brush, as you can see, it's like erasing with like the soft texture of the brush. And then you have the smudge tool next to that. That's the same. So if you click it twice, it will bring up all the brushes, and you can choose which brush you want to smudge with. So as you can see, it just basically smudges and blends colors together. And this is all your brushes. So if you click that, it will bring up all your brushes. And I've actually got quite a lot of sets that I've downloaded before from other artists, ones that I've made myself, and all the Procreate default brushes as well. To make a new brush folder, you just press this little plus here, and then you can rename the folder. And then if you click it again, you can rename it here, delete, share and duplicate. And if you want to drag a brush into a different folder, you can just click and hold the brush and then drag and drop until it sort of highlights over the folder you want to move it to, and now it's in that one. But it just duplicates it, it doesn't remove it from its original folder. Also, if you swipe a brush to the left, you can also share, duplicate and reset here. Reset is basically resetting the brush settings to its original settings, because if you click on the brush, you can actually bring up all these different settings and play around with it. So if you do something to it, like, I don't know, I just move that along, and then I swipe to the left and press reset. Are you sure you want to reset this brush? Yes. And now that's just gone back to its normal way. And you can actually make a new brush by clicking on this little plus button here, and you can start making a new brush from scratch basically. So that's really good. Anyway, moving on then to this side of the canvas, you have this little wrench tool here, which is actions. If you go to add the first icon here, you've got insert a file or photo, and you can also add text. So if you insert a photo, you can just click it and grab one from your gallery, or if you swipe to the left, you can actually insert a private photo. That just basically means that the photo will be hidden. So like if you're recording a time lapse on Procreate, it won't include that photo. And then just to add text, I'll quickly show you. It'll bring up this text box, and then you can just like write whatever you want in it. You can highlight it. if you click on these two little A's here, you can resize it here, change all the fonts, all that kind of stuff. And then this little icon will bring up the grid for typing again. Moving over to Canvas, this is where you can crop and resize the whole canvas. Then you've got Animation Assist, Page Assist, which I don't actually use. And then you've got Drawing Guide. If you toggle that on, and then you can click Drawing Guide. So you've got this grid behind now. You can change the grid size here, and then you've got isometric, perspective, and symmetry. Symmetry is like if you're drawing on one side of the canvas, it will repeat it onto the other. So that's really cool if you're drawing like a butterfly or something. If you click on options, you can choose to have it horizontal. So this one's good if you're like drawing a mandala, because if you're drawing in this box, it's going to repeat in the other boxes. And just on this top line, you can actually change the color of the grid to whatever one you want. But if you click on a layer and then press Drawing Assist, that's going to be basically, you can't really see it, but there is a line going down the middle. So when you draw on one side, it repeats on the other. So that's where the Drawing Assist comes in. So if you go back to Edit Drawing Guide, and then you go to Options, and this is where Drawing Assist would be turned on. So I'll just click off Drawing Guide. Reference, that will bring up a little reference box, which is really cool to use. So you can bring in an image from your gallery, and you can actually like zoom right into the image, like drag it down smaller. And also if you click on here and click Canvas, it will show what you're working on, so you can like work up really close on the actual canvas, but here you can see what it looks like from a distance. And then down here you've got flip, horizontal and vertical, which I like to do when I'm doing my sketches. I always like to flip the canvas to make sure that the drawing's looking good. And also you've got canvas information. So you've got like your dimensions of your canvas. And then at the bottom here you have statistics, which is where you can see your track time, which is really handy. So the next button here is share. This is where you can share your image as a different file type. And then down here you've got like your animations and GIFs and things. And next along is video. This is where you can see a time lapse of your drawing, and you can export a time lapse. You can toggle this on and off depending whether you want Procreate to automatically record like a time lapse of each drawing that you do. If you click time lapse replay, this will just show you a time lapse of what you've been doing, just so you can see like a preview. And then preferences, this is where you can change a couple of things on Procreate. So you've got like, you can change the color of the interface. This little sidebar, this is where you can change that. If you are left-handed or something, you might prefer it on this side. So you can actually toggle that on and it will go to the right-hand side. And you've got a few other little settings here. And then you've got gesture controls. I'm not gonna go through everything, but as you can see, like to do the customized eyedropper, you can choose what you do with the pencil and your fingers, like to use that tool. If I wanted the full screen, at the moment I've got it on a 4-finger tap. So if I go here, and at the moment it's got the sidebars, but if I press 4 fingers on the canvas, then all that disappears. And I just press 4 fingers to like bring it back again. So that's where you can change tools like that. Next we have adjustments. This is where you can change effects and colors of the image. So you've got hue, saturation and brightness, which brings up these little toggles at the bottom here, which you can change that. You've got color balance. Again, you can just like play around with that here and then click and choose. Then you have curves. So it just brings up curves for you, so you can play around with that. Gradient map. This just brings up already made kind of color palettes, I guess, and you can actually slide on the canvas and you can choose like the gradient. And then you've got Gaussian blur. So if you slide again with your finger on the canvas, it will bring up the percentage of how much you want it to be blurred. And you've got motion blur, perspective blur. Noise is one I quite like to use actually. So if I bring that up, you can see how it's giving like a really nice texture. And you can choose how much you want of it. And then you've got sharpen, bloom. So again, you can see it changing. It just gives it some kind of like highlight. It's just another effect basically that you can use. And then you've got glitch, halftone and chromatic aberration, which you can just play around with all these. I won't go through everything. But liquefy, this is like, you can use push and all these different things here. I usually just use it on push, and you can play around with moving things. So I like to do this with my sketches if I feel like I just need to adjust things a little bit. And then you got clone, which I don't really use. But anyway. Moving on to the next one, this is the select tool. So as it's on freehand, you can like select whatever kind of shapes you want. And then to select it, you can just press the little arrow and now you've selected that part of the image. So then you've got these options below. Uniform keeps it like the same as in the square. Distort, you can move it around a little bit more freehand. And warp is where you can like bend it all into different types of shapes. So they're really cool to play around with. And then you've got some other things at the bottom here, which I don't really use, but as you can see, you've got some different types of options there as well. If you want to undo anything, you can just tap 2 fingers on the canvas and it will undo what you just did. But yeah, coming back to the select tool, at the moment it's on color fill. So if I click on rectangle, that will color fill whatever color you have selected. So it's also really handy. So if you select a layer and click on select, as it's on color fill, it automatically selected the whole layer into that color. And if you don't want that on, you just untoggle that off and you won't have that problem. That is pretty much it for this little beginner's guide to Procreate. I hope I've covered like everything. If you have any questions or want me to go in depth in anything in particular, let me know. Otherwise, I really hope that you've enjoyed watching. Consider checking out other videos on my channel if you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you back here next time for another video. Thanks for watching then. Bye.